Welcome back. Today we're taking a look at this RCA tablet. This is actually a 2-in-1 unit. It's a tablet with the keyboard. The initial complaint is the keyboard doesn't work. We're going to take a look at that and figure out why. I haven't actually looked at any of this at all whatsoever, so we're going to look at this together. This actually belongs to my wife's coworker's granddaughter. Actually, it's a former coworker of mine. I used to work in the same place. Regardless, we'll take a look at this and figure out why the keyboard's not working. I already have some ideas. It could be either a hardware issue, meaning something internally between here or here. It could be the physical connection. It could be something as simple as the settings are off. Hopefully that's the problem, because then we can just turn it on. If not, we'll have to take it apart. We do have a trusty screwdriver all ready to go. I should mention this is RCA model number RCT6213W87. It's known as the 11 Maven Pro or the Maven Pro 11-inch, depending on how you see it worded. It doesn't really give you any information on here anywhere. It does just have the model number listed on the side, and that's about it. I did find these on Walmart's website. I'm assuming that's where it's purchased from, but I don't really know. That's not relevant really. We just want to figure out why this isn't working. So the very first thing we have to do, since I don't know anything all about this particular unit, is figure out, well, how to turn it on. That's pretty easy, because over here it's listed having a power button, so we can just push that. So I'll open this up and we'll push that and we'll see what happens. It should boot up, hopefully. If it doesn't, we'll have to get this thing powered. Unfortunately, I don't have the power adapter for it. I do have lots of power supplies, just not the particular one for this, so we may have to figure something out here. Alright, so you do have to do a little bit of a long press here for it to turn on. It's not just a quick push of a button. So hopefully we can replicate what the problem is here. Alright, I had to wait for the thing to boot up, and it just took a few minutes here. It's actually pretty quick. Now, I can touch the screen, obviously, so we know the touch screen works. There is a pin number. They did give me that number. I'll enter that here in just a moment. But I just want to kind of play around here on this main screen. We don't have a cursor that I could see. Actually, here, yeah, it did pop up. Okay, so the mouse works. So we can assume that the connection between the keyboard here and the actual tablet works. Now, is there separate connectors for the keyboard as there is for the trackpad? Not sure. I would assume that this is actually all one connection here, and this is, you know, emulated like USB, and there's just a different driver for each component. And to figure that out, we can actually shut this top here, and this actually just pops out like that. We can separate the two. And if you do look in here, you can see that there are 4 contacts, which is indicative of it being USB of some sort. Usually USB, you have positive 5 volts, a ground, and then you have data plus, data minus, and that's what actually connects the device to the next device, and so on and so forth. Contacts look good. You can see they're really nice and shiny, so there's no dirt on there that we have to worry about. It doesn't really look like this gets separated very much, as you can tell by this telltale line of dirt. A lot of people I notice that use the tablet with the keyboard, they don't usually separate the two. My mom has a setup similar to this, and that's how hers is. My dad actually has that tablet now. Anyway, so we know that the connection here is good. Now, again, nothing happens with the keyboard. Some you can actually come out of standby with that. That doesn't seem to be the case here. If we push the power button, it should come back, which the screen does. We have cursor, so we know we're connected still. But yet, nothing here seems like it does anything. It does seem like it makes the cursor go away. We'll see if maybe the cursor times out on its own. It doesn't. So something must be working here. And let's see if I try putting this number in. Oh well, now see, now this is actually working. It could have been just that connection there. I will further test this out, of course, but Now, like I said, I didn't do any testing at all before I actually turned this camera on. So everything you were seeing now is exactly how I saw it from my eyes first. So I, disconnected it. That was actually one thing I did do, is I did disconnect it before I did look at the video, because I wasn't sure if this was a tablet or a laptop at first. I had a feeling it was a tablet because it just had that telltale look to it, the screen being heavier than the actual base. And I did notice those contacts. So maybe me doing that made it work. But regardless, it does seem like it is working right now. So I will go ahead and input that password. We'll get into the actual Android system here. We can see if maybe we can test it. I just pulled up a web browser here just to see if we can just test this out a little bit. And if I input an address, we'll pull up YouTube. I know there's an app here for it, but we'll just pull that up just to see. Yeah, it worked. I'm not online because I'm not connected to my Wi-Fi here, but I can go up here, I can use the mouse, I can open up a new tab, I can go in, I can type. So clearly the keyboard is working. It would have been nice to kind of replicate the issue. I would have liked to have opened this thing up and seen it not working to begin with. Maybe I shouldn't have disconnected it before I actually turned it on. But sometimes that's what happens. Those connectors just get a little funky. What I will do is I will take out my trusty little cleaning device over here, which is the old toothbrush you may have seen me use in other videos, and I'll take some of my deoxit that I have in my tool bag here. I keep some of that stuff right here in the front, and I'll hit those contacts up with some deoxit just for the sake of it, just so I know that it's clean. I do have both kinds of deoxit here. There's the deoxit gold. They're both deoxit gold, but one's the GN5. One's for contacts, one's for more of the actual surface. So I'll use that. I'll get that cleaned up. It's just going to be a little squirt of that on the contact, and I'll just clean it with the brush if I need to scrub anything off. I mean, it looked clean, but just to make sure it is absolutely clean. Unfortunately, I wish this video would be a little bit more informative. I kind of didn't want it to work. I wanted it to have to be something where I'd have to go in and show you how to fix it, but that wasn't the case in this time around. And luckily, that's, that happens. Sometimes you get these things and you expect it to be something difficult, and it's actually not something difficult. It's actually something really easy. Or, the magic touch happens where you get it in your hands. Hey, this doesn't work. Let me take a look at it. Oh, it works. So that just happens. It's like the car, the classic case of the car. You get it making this horrific noise, and you say, I finally got to take it to the mechanic, and then you pull it in the mechanic's garage, and the minute you do, it just stops making that noise, and it runs like a top on the way. And it always baffles you, like, why did that happen? But and then come to find out there wasn't anything wrong with the car to begin with. It just made this noise. And that's kind of like this. The keyboard wasn't working. That's what I was told. I powered it up after disconnecting it, and it worked. So that leads me to believe there was something funky with that contact. But alas, it wasn't. It may be. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell now at this point. Now, where can you go to fix it if it is something software? Well, first of all, we'll take a look on the side over here. You'll notice there's a little thing that sticks out. It's a little USB receiver. This is for USB, either a keyboard or USB mouse as it is. Plugging one of these in could theoretically override another setting. So if this is for a USB keyboard, it could disable this keyboard in favor of the other one. Now, there isn't actually one in vicinity of this to connect to it, so theoretically, I could be wrong, but maybe because the other keyboard isn't here, this one's working, or maybe this is for mouse. I'm assuming this is for mouse. I mean, you would usually use a wireless mouse with something like this, so you already have a keyboard. So I can rule that out. I mean, if I want, I can disconnect that little receiver, and that would be one thing. The other thing, like I said, it was the connector. Okay, what if it wasn't the connector and it wasn't software? Well, then it could be the connector just on the other side. It could be the little ribbon that connects inside the computer here to the actual motherboard. It could be the component inside this keyboard. And then if that was the case, we would start taking screws out and get to that actual connector, and we would try to figure it out there. But that's not the case. So then it would be, like I said, it would be a setting. So in this system here, I'm going to try to find this. There's a settings system here, and you can go in. If you know Android, you've probably played with all this stuff in here before at one point or another. But in here, and I'm not sure where, so I am digging around for it, there should be a setting for the actual keyboard. Maybe it's under language and input. I have read online that sometimes what happens is an update will be performed to the device automatically or manually, and that will render a device useless afterwards. And if you roll back the update, that will help. And it's one of those things like, well, the keyboard worked yesterday but didn't work today. Well, what did you do today? Today I downloaded this program, or today I did this, or the download, you know, automatically downloaded an update. Good chance that's why the thing isn't working. Something's conflicting. Just roll back that update. It may just work. If that's the case, if you do roll it back, it works, well, then you know what your problem was. Then I wouldn't reinstall the update unless you want to see if that's what caused the problem. Then you could reinstall it. If it's the problem, then you know right away. But I wouldn't reinstall the update until you know, like maybe the next update after that came out, they fixed it. Now, if you look, hopefully I can pick this up on camera here, if I position everything just right. I think you can read this because I can see it on the little viewfinder. There are different options here for like the keyboard and input, and the current keyboard is the Google keyboard, which is in English, you know, but if you notice it says physical keyboard. Logitech USB receiver is the default, and then the RCA detachable keyboard is also set to default. So that could have a conflict there too. It could be that when one of these keyboards isn't when one's here, it disables the other one. This just seems like though this is actually the setting for the actual keyboard layout. So if the remote one, the actual Logitech wireless one you're using, doesn't have the standard QWERTY layout, you would change that in here. So it doesn't really seem like it actually has a setting to turn any of these on or off. So clearly, you know, obviously that wasn't the issue anyway, but that's where you might want to play around. I'm trying to really make this video have more content than it really is, so if it seems like I'm stretching for stuff here, I'm sorry, but you know, that's what happens when you get to something like this where you just opened it up and the complaint just isn't there. That's one of my first things about troubleshooting, I'll say, is trying to replicate the original problem. So we'll start this from scratch. We'll say, okay, here's this device. What is it doing? It's doing this. It's not doing this. Here's the situation. The keyboard's not working. That's the thing it's doing or not doing. Then you look at there's a hierarchy. What's the simplest thing you look at first is always the thing you look at. And that's great, but I always try to, well, can I replicate that problem? I mean, if it's obvious, like you open it up, like, screen's cracked. What's wrong with it? The screen's cracked. You open it up, there's a big crack going across the screen. You're like, yep, screen's cracked. You just replicated the problem. This one was, the keyboard didn't work. Okay, you open it up. Well, the keyboard worked when I tried it out, but that, like I said, I did also disconnect this two pieces, and that may have reset that connection. Very good possibility. So that's, you know, one of those things, like I said, if I could replicate the problem from the get-go, it would have been a lot easier to diagnose it and say, yep, it was this. But since the problem didn't replicate itself in the beginning, I don't know what was wrong with it. Ergo, it just fixed itself, and we just had to let it be at that. So, like I said, I have to kind of hunt for more information to make this into a more interesting video, so I could show you, like I said, where you could fix that if that's the actual issue. So we already discussed setting-wise, we've already discussed the connection. I'm not going to tear this apart because there really isn't any reason to, but you know, you get the idea with that. There's just a simple bunch of screws in the bottom. I would check in here where the connector is. You can see maybe this little flexi piece here could contain the actual wiring from that connector in there. So that's a point to look at. You know, we won't know until we open it up, but we don't need to, because it works. And that's the important thing. Now, if someone said they wanted to replace the key on here that's missing or something like that, that's a possibility, but you'd have to find the exact key, which you won't. You won't get replacements of this. And it doesn't seem like the keyboard actually comes out of this. Like on a regular laptop, you would have some kind of way to get in here, and then this would come out. I mean, it may come from the back side, but it's a good chance this is all just one unit. You would probably just replace this bottom piece anyway. You can buy them separately. But anyway, with that, I want to thank you for watching. I know it wasn't terribly interesting, but, you know, alas, that's what happens sometimes. We should have some more videos coming up soon. I do have some interesting projects coming up. It's actually coming up soon on a week till vacation again. And I'll be going camping again in September. And I have some ideas for some things I want to do and kind of get put into place before I go. Just because, you know, I like having gear with me, and there's some ideas I have. So we might have some looks into that in the next few videos. But anyway, that's enough for this. Thanks for watching.